There are lessons that time cannot erase. Stories of men who built empires, lost them, and left behind something far greater than fortune wisdom. Welcome to Trading Lessons from Legends, a place for those who seek more than profit, for those who wish to understand the invisible game beneath every chart, the one played between the human mind and its own desires. Here, we revisit the lives of history's greatest traders, not to glorify them, but to learn from their victories, their losses, and the timeless patterns of human nature they revealed. If these stories move you, if they make you think, pause, or see yourself more clearly, then join us. Subscribe, share, and walk this road with us. Because in the end, the greatest trade of all is the one between ignorance and understanding. The seduction of the big win, how success destroys discipline. The room was filled with the soft hum of the ticker tape, the mechanical pulse of the market echoing through the air. It was 1929 and Wall Street glowed with a strange kind of light, part glory, part madness. Men in starched collars leaned over their desks, faces pale with anticipation, eyes hungry for the next move of the tape. In that moment, everyone felt invincible. Stocks only went one way. Fortunes appeared out of thin air. The game had become a theater of confidence. Jesse Livermore sat quietly at his corner desk, watching the stream of numbers roll by. To the men around him, he was already a legend, the boy plunger, the man who could feel the market before it spoke. But behind the calm expression, he knew a truth few were willing to face. The moment of greatest triumph is the most dangerous moment of all. He once said, after a man makes $1 million, he begins to lose the respect for money that kept him safe. That single sentence carried the weight of every trader's undoing. The first million changes a man not because of what he gains, but because of what he no longer fears. Money, once the symbol of survival, becomes a measure of ego. Discipline gives way to desire, and desire in speculation is death disguised as victory. The crowd outside never understood. They saw only the glory. They saw the yachts, the tailored suits, the headlines. They called him lucky, brilliant, chosen. They did not see the silent nights when he sat awake, staring at the tape, knowing that success had already begun to poison his instincts. When a trader wins big, something inside him breaks. The hunger that once pushed him to study every tick turns into a quiet arrogance. He no longer listens to the market. He listens to himself. He believes he has discovered the code. He forgets that markets are not equations, they are mirrors of human nature. And human nature does not stay still. Livermore used to say that the game of speculation was the most fascinating in the world, but that it was not a game for the stupid, the mentally lazy, or the emotionally unbalanced. Yet even he, the most disciplined of them all, found that intelligence and discipline could not protect a man from success. Success itself was the seducer. It begins innocently enough. A trader catches a great trend. He rides it perfectly, adds to his position, scales out with grace. His account triples, his confidence grows. He begins to feel chosen, as if the market speaks directly to him. And maybe it does for a while, but slowly, imperceptibly, the voice of the market fades, and all he hears is his own. The human brain is built to chase reward. Each profitable trade releases a chemical flood, a rush of dopamine that whispers, "You were right, you're special." The trader doesn't realize he's no longer trading the market. He's trading the feeling. He's no longer looking for opportunity. He's looking for affirmation. That is the trap of the big win. It doesn't destroy you through loss. It destroys you through confidence. The loss comes later, after you've raised the stakes high enough that the market no longer forgives your pride. Livermore had seen this cycle not only in others but in himself. He would make millions, only to lose them again. Not because his methods failed, but because his humanity returned. He once told a reporter, "The human side of every person is the greatest enemy of the average speculator." He didn't exclude himself. At the height of the bull market, Livermore walked past the brokerage houses and saw men he had never met trading like kings. He watched shoe shiners, clerks, and widows buying stocks as if it were their birthright. Everyone believed in the permanence of gain. He knew what that meant. It meant the end was near. Yet even as he prepared to short the market, even as he watched the illusion inflate, he felt a quiet unease. He was right before, but would he be right again? Victory breeds impatience. Once a man has seen the magic of being right, he can no longer bear to wait. The mind that once respected caution now demands constant validation. Every idle hour feels like wasted opportunity. The trader forgets that the market's greatest moves require stillness. He becomes addicted to motion. There is a peculiar blindness that comes with success. It is not arrogance in the loud sense, but a subtle belief that the rules no longer apply. You begin to think, yes, others lose control, but not me. I understand this game. That is the voice of doom. Because the moment you believe you understand the market begins its work to teach you humility. Livermore had a rule. Never argue with the tape. The market is always right, not the trader. But when the trader wins enough times, that rule becomes inconvenient. The tape becomes an annoyance, a slow messenger that refuses to confirm what the ego already knows. The trader starts to interpret instead of observe. He starts to justify instead of react. And that is the first step toward ruin. The big win whispers promises. It tells you that your talent is special, that the market bends slightly in your direction. You begin to size up, take bolder positions, push the limits of margin. You start to see caution as weakness. You say to yourself, I've earned the right to take more risk. That sentence has buried more traders than any bear market in history. Livermore knew that the market had no memory and no mercy. It does not remember your triumphs, and it does not forgive your mistakes. The ticker tape does not care that you were once brilliant. Every day begins clean. Every day the market asks the same question. Are you disciplined today? Success tricks you into thinking you no longer need to answer. When Livermore made his great fortune shorting the market during the crash of 1929, he was called the Great Bear of Wall Street. Newspapers wrote that he had earned more money than any man alive. People sent him letters, some of admiration, some of hatred. His name became a symbol of power. But the irony is that while the world saw triumph, Livermore saw danger. He understood that he had entered the most perilous phase of his career, because the moment you are celebrated is the moment you begin to decline. Praise feeds ego, and ego blinds perception. Livermore tried to protect himself from it, but even he couldn't escape. He began to believe, just slightly, that his touch was special. That subtle thought, the tiniest seed of invincibility, would grow quietly until it strangled his discipline. He used to say that the market punishes the proud and rewards the humble. Yet success makes humility almost impossible. It tells you that your humility is unnecessary. It convinces you that caution is for others. You begin to see the market as an adversary you've conquered, instead of a force you serve. That shift, so small, so human, is what turns masters into victims. If you had asked Livermore then whether he felt in control, he would have smiled. He would have said that control is an illusion. He understood that the best a trader can do is align with the rhythm of the market, not dominate it. But alignment requires fear, healthy fear, and success anesthetizes fear. Without fear, there is no respect. Without respect, there is no discipline. And without discipline, the market eventually takes everything back. Livermore's story is not unique because he lost money. It is unique because he understood why he lost it, and he spoke about it with brutal honesty. He admitted that every great trader fights two opponents, the market and himself. And the market, he said, is the easier one. He wrote, "The market is never wrong, opinions often are." But what he didn't write, what he lived instead, was the quiet truth that success distorts opinions until they become indistinguishable from identity. When your opinion becomes who you are, you can no longer change it. And when you can't change, the market kills you. The first part of his tragedy was not losing millions. It was losing the humility that allowed him to make them. The seduction of the big win isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes softly, wrapped in praise and confidence, whispering that the struggle is over. It tells you you've finally mastered the game. But the moment you believe that, the game changes. Livermore once said, "There is nothing new on Wall Street because human nature never changes." And that was the cruelest truth of all. The same human nature that pushed him to greatness also dragged him down. He could outthink markets, outweight crowds, outtrade legends, but he could not escape himself. And so, As the champagne corks popped and the headlines glorified his name, he watched with an uneasy calm. He knew the cycle. He had lived it before. Success would soon give way to overconfidence, overconfidence to carelessness, and carelessness to ruin. He just didn't know when. That's the strange thing about the big win. It doesn't end you all at once. It begins by convincing you that the danger is gone. It tells you to relax, to enjoy, to trust your instincts. It makes you soft. And by the time you notice, it's already too late. The seduction of success is the slowest poison in trading. It tastes like wisdom, smells like mastery, and feels like destiny. But beneath the surface, it is eating away the fear, respect, and discipline that keep you alive. Jesse Livermore knew this better than anyone. But knowing is not the same as escaping. He had reached the summit. The headlines called him invincible. The newspapers praised his foresight, and his fortune was beyond imagination. Yet in the quiet of his study, Jesse Livermore felt the faint tremor of unease that always followed triumph. He understood that the same emotions that drove him to victory could now destroy him. But knowledge and speculation is powerless against emotion. Success has a peculiar way of rearranging a man's inner furniture. The careful order that once kept him balanced becomes cluttered with pride. The routines that built his discipline begin to feel unnecessary. He looks in the mirror and sees not a student of the market, but a master of it. The reflection is pleasing and fatal. Livermore had once kept meticulous notebooks, recording every trade, every mistake, every rule. Now the rules lived only in his memory, softened by success, ignored when inconvenient. He still spoke of discipline in interviews, but privately, he began to bend his own commandments. He justified it by saying that experience had earned him the right to improvise. But the market does not care about experience. It only respects humility. He used to say that the market punishes the man who seeks excitement and rewards the one who seeks truth. Yet success itself is the greatest excitement of all. It blinds the trader to risk by bathing him in admiration. When the applause grows too loud, even the wisest man forgets to listen for the warning bells. The great irony of Livermore's life was that the traits that made him successful, confidence, conviction, boldness, were the same ones that led to his undoing. Each big win reinforced his belief in his own judgment, until that belief hardened into something dangerous. Certainty. And certainty, in the market, is death. He began to believe he could feel the market's pulse without studying it. He stopped checking his charts as carefully. He ignored small losses, calling them temporary drawdowns. His once razor-sharp discipline dulled under the comfort of wealth. Wealth changes perception. A small loss that once demanded attention now feels irrelevant against the mountain of capital behind you. You stop protecting what you have because you assume there will always be more. You forget that every fortune, no matter how large, can be reduced to dust by the same forces that created it. Livermore's fortune allowed him luxuries that would have seemed obscene only a decade earlier. He bought mansions, yachts, and gifts for those he loved. He deserved them, he thought. He had earned them through skill and courage. But slowly, these comforts created a new reality, a world insulated from the noise of the market, a world where bad news arrived, softened, and delayed. He began to live off the market rather than with it. That distinction was everything. To live with the market is to breathe with its rhythm, to feel its moods, to remain flexible. To live off the market is to treat it as a servant, a source of income that will always obey. And the market, like fate, punishes such arrogance without warning. One of his clerks once recalled that Livermore's office, once austere and filled with charts, became more like a drawing room. The silence of study was replaced by the murmur of guests and the clinking of glasses. He was still brilliant, still respected, but the edge had dulled. He no longer lived in the tension that had once kept him sharp. When he looked at the tape now, it was not curiosity that filled him, but expectation. He no longer asked, "What is the market telling me?" He asked, "When will it agree with me?" That subtle change in question marked the death of his discipline. He once said, "The market is never wrong. Opinions often are." But he had begun to mistake his opinions for truth. The humility that once protected him was slowly replaced by a belief in personal destiny. He started to see patterns that weren't there, to force trades where patience was required. Discipline decays quietly. It doesn't announce its departure. It slips away in moments of comfort when you win too easily. When you stop writing notes. When you decide that one small rule doesn't matter. Each small exception becomes a precedent. Each precedent becomes a habit. And habits make or break a trader long before any chart does. Livermore's biggest mistake was not a single bad trade. It was the slow erosion of his process. The habits that once anchored him were replaced by confidence. He trusted his instincts more than his rules. He mistook intuition for experience. He had once feared leverage. Now he embraced it. Margin, once the enemy, became an ally. The market seemed predictable, generous even. Why not press harder? Why not take what the market was offering? But the market never offers it, only tempts. Temptation is the quiet twin of success. It does not shout. It whispers. It tells you that you've earned the right to be bold, that the same risk which would destroy another man will spare you. It tells you that you understand the rhythm too well to be caught off guard. And so you take one more position, just a little larger, just a little sooner, just a little riskier. By the time you realize it, you're no longer playing the same game. You're gambling with the illusion of control. Livermore's notes from that time reveal a man wrestling with himself. He wrote about the dangerous calm that follows victory and the strange fatigue that success brings. He recognized the pattern, the overconfidence, the boredom, the urge to prove himself again. Yet recognition did not save him. The human mind cannot reason its way out of emotion. He would open positions not out of opportunity, but out of restlessness. He called it the hunger for action. After great wins, inactivity felt unbearable. Sitting on cash felt like failure. He once joked, "A trader without a position is like a soldier without a war." But beneath the humor was a quiet confession. He had become addicted to risk. Addiction is not always to loss. Sometimes it's to the rush of being right. That is the most destructive addiction of all, because it disguises itself as competence. His friends noticed the change. He smiled more often but listened less. He grew impatient when others disagreed. The same man who had once studied the market for hours now relied on instinct. He had become what he once warned others about, the trader who believes rules are for other men. There were still moments of brilliance. He would make daring calls that stunned his peers. He would still pull in enormous profits. But behind the wins, the discipline was hollow. Each success only deepened the illusion of invincibility. The market allows arrogance to grow just long enough to ensure the punishment will be fatal. It's a cruel symmetry. The same qualities that earn fortune, boldness, conviction, speed, are the ones that, once corrupted by ego, bring ruin. Livermore's wife later recalled how he became more distant during those years, more consumed by the invisible battle in his mind. He would pace at night, muttering numbers, replaying trades, chasing perfection. He was winning, yes, but the joy was gone. Success had turned from a goal into a burden. He once told a friend, "It's easy to make money. It's hard to keep it." He wasn't talking about markets. He was talking about himself. Keeping money requires the same fear that once drove you to earn it. But fear fades faster than fortune grows. Without it, the trader becomes blind to risk, deaf to warning. He began to confuse comfort with wisdom. When trades worked, he called it experience. When they failed, he called it temporary. He was right often enough to keep believing. That is the most dangerous state of all, to be rewarded for bad behavior. The market, in its cruelty, will sometimes reinforce your mistakes before it destroys you. It lets you think that breaking rules is the new skill. It lets you believe that you've evolved beyond caution. And then, when your defenses are gone, it reminds you that nothing has changed. The decay of discipline is not loud. It's quiet, almost elegant. It moves slowly, step by step, wrapping itself in the language of success. You don't feel it happening because it doesn't hurt yet. Livermore had once written that the hardest thing in speculation was not making money but keeping character. Success tests character more severely than loss. Loss reminds you to be humble. Success convinces you that humility is obsolete. He was drifting toward the inevitable, the point where one big loss would arrive not as a shock but as a fulfillment. Because in trading, ruin is rarely sudden. It is the final payment for years of small betrayals against your own principles. When the warning signs came, Livermore ignored them. The market began to shift. Trends grew unstable. Volatility returned. The rhythm he once felt so clearly now seemed to stutter. Instead of adjusting, he doubled down. He believed the market would correct itself to align with his vision. But the market never corrects to anyone's vision. He would later say, "The desire for constant action, irrespective of underlying conditions, is responsible for many losses on Wall Street." It was a confession, though few realized it. He had fallen victim to the same desire he once warned about. And so the stage was set. The great bear of Wall Street, the man who had outwitted markets and made and lost fortunes, was walking toward his final lesson. The discipline that had once been his shield was gone. The fear that had once been his teacher was silent. All that remained was belief pure, blinding belief in his own infallibility. It was the perfect setup. The market was ready to take everything back. The market never announces the end. It begins quietly, almost kindly, as if giving one last chance to step away. Prices drift, signals blur, momentum weakens, but pride keeps the trader in his seat. Livermore had seen it happen to others countless times. This time he did not notice it happening to himself. He was convinced that a small correction was only temporary, that the trend would soon return in his favor. It always had before. He added to his positions, confident that conviction would carry him through. The same courage that had once made him millions now chained him to his losses. Day after day, the ticker mocked him. What had once been a melody of profit became a monotonous dirge of decline. He told his brokers to hold. He told his friends he was calm. But in the quiet of his office, he felt the first touch of fear. A fear not of losing money, but of losing control. He had built an empire of insight, yet he found himself blind. The market, once so obedient, now moved with an unfamiliar rhythm. It no longer rewarded his patience. It punished his persistence. Every recovery was short-lived, every rally a trap. Livermore had always said that the market was designed to deceive the greatest number of people the greatest amount of the time. But now he understood that it was not the market's deception that hurt most, it was his own. He had deceived himself into believing he could not be wrong. As the losses grew, he began to break his own rules more openly. He averaged down on positions he swore he would never touch again. He told himself that fundamentals were irrelevant, that panic would soon pass. When the first margin calls came, he treated them as insults, not warnings. The brokers obeyed, of course. Who could question Jesse Livermore, the man who had shorted the crash of '29 and walked away richer than bankers? But reverence does not prevent ruin. Markets, like tides, obey no master. The pressure built slowly. At first it was a dull ache in the chest, a sleepless night here and there. Then it became a physical weight, a heaviness that no amount of reasoning could lift. He began to realize that wealth, once a symbol of freedom, had become his cage. He could not quit. He had built an identity too large to escape. There comes a moment in every trader's life when numbers stop being numbers. They become judgment. Each tick against you is not just a loss of money, it's an accusation, a reminder that the market sees through your pretense. Livermore felt that judgment in every trade. He was no longer trading the market. He was trading his reputation, his pride, his very name. The public still saw him as a titan, but inside he was unraveling. Friends noticed his silence. He spoke less of markets and more of mistakes. He would stare at the ticker as if willing it to forgive him. But markets forgive no one. They simply reset. He once wrote, "The greatest danger is not in losing. It's in believing you can't." Those words, once a lesson for others, now haunted him. He had believed he couldn't lose, and that belief had destroyed him. Loss reveals character in a way success never can. In success, you can pretend. In loss, you see the truth of yourself. Livermore saw it clearly now. The confidence that had built his empire was built on fear, a fear he had learned to control but never to conquer. When the fear vanished, replaced by pride, the empire began to crumble. Each day he watched positions move further against him, and each day he told himself the same lie. The market will come back. But the market never comes back. It moves on. He began selling possessions to cover calls. The yacht went first, then the second home. The fortune that had seemed endless evaporated like mist under sunlight. The newspapers that once hailed him as a genius now whispered about his decline. Yet even in the midst of collapse, there was a strange calm. He understood, perhaps for the first time, the full circle of the game. The same forces that had lifted him were now returning to balance the scales. There was no malice in it, only symmetry. He wrote in his notebook, "The market is never wrong. Opinions often are." And beneath it, almost as an afterthought, "So is pride." That was his final revelation. Pride is the silent margin call of the soul. For years, he had thought the opposite of fear was confidence. Now he saw that the opposite of fear was wisdom. Confidence is loud. Wisdom is quiet. Confidence acts. Wisdom waits. When you lose fear, you also lose caution. When you lose caution, you stop respecting risk. And when you stop respecting risk, the market teaches you again by taking everything away. In those final years, Livermore spoke often of lessons. He said there were only 3 that mattered, and he repeated them like prayers. Treat every win like a trap. Respect the market even when it praises you. Never let profit blind your awareness. These were not slogans. They were gravestones for every rule he had once broken. He understood now that discipline is not a rule book, it's a posture of humility before chaos. The market does not demand brilliance, it demands surrender. He had always been admired for his courage. But courage without humility is just recklessness in a fine suit. He once said, "There is nothing new on Wall Street, because human nature never changes." The line had become a cliché, repeated by men who never understood it. But Livermore understood. He had lived it. Human nature was the constant, the greed, the fear, the overconfidence, the hunger to be special. The market merely reflected it back to those who dared to look. When the final reckoning came, it was quiet. No crash, no headlines, no grand betrayal. Just the slow realization that the dream had run its course. The man who had mastered cycles had become part of one. He withdrew from the trading floors and from the public eye. The game that had once given him purpose now felt hollow. He had won too much, lost too much, seen too much. The public called it tragedy. He called it truth. Because the real tragedy is not losing money, it's losing the self-awareness that money once sharpened. If success is the most seductive illusion, then failure is the most honest mirror. He would sometimes sit alone in his study, surrounded by old notebooks, reading his own words as if they belonged to another man. He smiled at his younger self, the boy who believed he could outthink the market. He knew now that the market was never an opponent. It was a reflection, an endless test of character. He had spent a lifetime trading against human emotion, and in the end, he discovered that emotion always wins, not because it is stronger, but because it is truer. The ticker tape that once sang songs of victory now whispered a different message. Humility, patience, awareness. Livermore's legacy is not his fortune, nor his failure. It is the lesson his life embodies, that success without self-understanding is just a prelude to loss. He once said that speculation was a game too fascinating to quit, but too dangerous to master. Perhaps that is why so many still play it. They are not chasing profit, they are chasing meaning. The seduction of the big win is eternal because it promises redemption, not wealth. It tells us that if we can conquer the market, we can conquer ourselves. But the market was never meant to be conquered. It exists to reveal. In the end, Jesse Livermore learned what few ever do, that the market's greatest lesson is not about money, but about humanity. Every ticker, every price, every chart is just a mirror reflecting the same face, the face of the trader, caught between fear and greed, pride and humility, hope and despair. He saw that clearly, at last, and perhaps for a moment he was free. The story of Jesse Livermore is not about riches or ruin. It is about the endless struggle to remain human in a world that rewards arrogance and punishes reflection. To every trader who dreams of the big win, his life offers a warning whispered through time. Success is not the end of the game. It is the beginning of your next mistake, unless you remember who you were before you won. And that, more than all his millions, is the inheritance he left behind. And so, this is where the story ends. Another chapter from the life of Jesse Livermore, a man who conquered the market, and was conquered by it in return. But every ending leaves a question behind. What did you learn from his story? Did it remind you of something in yourself? A moment of pride? A lesson forgotten? A truth you're still learning to face? Here on Trading Lessons from Legends, we don't just tell stories of the past. We look for the patterns that repeat in markets, in minds, and in us. If this story spoke to you, tell us what stayed with you. What would you like to hear next? Which Legends journey should we explore? And what lessons do you want this channel to uncover? Your thoughts and reflections guide how this project grows. So leave a comment, share your ideas, and help us shape what comes next. Thank you for listening truly. Until the next story, trade wisely, stay humble, and never stop learning from the legends.